She didn't scream, she didn't cry, but with one silent motion, she told him everything. It was just another sunny afternoon outside Buckingham Palace. Tourists were laughing, cameras were snapping, and the royal guard stood motionless, his boots planted, his face unreadable. Until one little girl, no older than 8, locked eyes with him and made a single chilling gesture that no one else noticed. What happened next would break centuries of military protocol and leave the entire crowd frozen in silence. Before we show you what this brave soldier did, hit that like button if you believe protecting a child is more important than following rules. Drop a comment below. Have you ever witnessed something that just didn't feel right? And make sure to subscribe to this channel for more powerful stories of courage, discipline, and quiet heroism. Underscore. Now stay with us, because this story, it's not just about a man in uniform. It's about the moment he chose to become something more. You'll want to see what made him step out of formation, face down a violent predator, and risk everything for a little girl he had never met. And trust me, what she does at the very end of this story, it'll stay with you long after the video ends. Underscore. At first glance, nothing seemed out of place. The man looked refined, tailored jacket, polished shoes, even a charming British accent. He rested a firm hand on the girl's small shoulder, calling her Emily, with a tight smile. But Royal Guard Nathan Bellamy didn't buy it, not for a second. He'd served 2 tours overseas. He'd seen the way fear hides behind forced smiles. And something about this little girl didn't sit right. While other kids giggled and pointed at the tall guards in red coats, she didn't move. Her shoulders were stiff, her hands clenched. Her wide eyes never left the man beside her. She wore a long-sleeved shirt, even though it was nearly 85 degrees out. And when the man turned away to check his phone, her entire body relaxed for just a moment, before tensing up again the second he looked back. Then came the first real clue. A group of tourists passed by, and a cheerful woman leaned over to say, "Are you excited to see the guards, sweetheart?" The girl hesitated, her lips parted like she might say something, anything. But before she could answer, the man's voice cut in, sharp and low. "She's shy around strangers. Aren't you, Emily?" The girl nodded, but a beat too late. Nathan saw it, felt it, the kind of pause that doesn't come from shyness, but fear. This wasn't right. And as he looked down from his post, years of training whispered one thing in his ear. Watch. Everything. Underscore. It's easy to overlook a child in a crowd. But Nathan Bellamy had learned something during his time in the army. The people who need help the most often make the least noise. Underscore. He remained still in formation as expected of a royal guard. Not a twitch, not a blink. But behind that stoic expression, his instincts were alive, watching, calculating. The man beside the girl leaned down again, his voice low, urgent. "Remember what I said. No talking, no wandering, or else." The girl's body language gave it all away. Her back stiffened, her arms clutched tighter around a worn pink backpack, one strap fraying at the edge. And for a moment her sleeve slipped, revealing a yellowish bruise on her wrist, shaped unmistakably like fingers. Nathan's heart clenched. He thought of his own daughters, Hannah, age 10, and Grace, just turned 8, how they ran to hug him after his long deployments, how their hands felt small and warm when they clutched his. This little girl didn't have that warmth, just silence and terror. The man checked his watch, growing restless. "We'll be gone soon," he muttered, half to himself. "Then nobody will ever know." Nathan's jaw tightened beneath the ceremonial bearskin hat. Every fiber of his being screamed to act. But he was still bound by the weight of tradition, the eyes of history watching his every move. And then it happened. As the crowd shifted, the man grabbed the girl's arm a little too hard, yanking her forward. A group of tourists passed between them and the guard line, blocking Nathan's view for just a heartbeat. When they cleared, the girl had turned her head. She was looking straight at him, not at the crowd, not at a camera, at him. And in that single glance, Nathan saw something that would haunt him forever. A child's eyes, filled with unshed tears, glinting in the sun, and behind them, a desperate, fragile spark of hope. And then, with a movement so subtle it would have gone unnoticed by anyone else, she lifted her hand. At first, it looked like she was brushing her hair from her face, but then she clenched her tiny fist, opened it, and pressed it firmly into her other palm. The signal, not a wave, not a cry, the universal distress signal for children, taught in American schools, shelters, and parenting classes across the country. Nathan's blood turned to ice. That was it. No more questions, no more doubt. His heart thundered beneath his red uniform. This was real. This was happening. Right here, right now. Just then, the man noticed. His face twisted, not with concern, but rage. He grabbed the girl's wrist hard. She gasped audibly, despite trying to remain composed. "You little..." "Yeah," he hissed under his breath. "Do that again and I swear." That was enough. Nathan moved. For the first time in his 11-year career as the Royal Guard, he broke formation. His boots slammed against the ancient stone courtyard with such force that a ripple spread through the crowd. Tourists gasped, phones turned, children stopped pointing, cameras stopped flashing. One guard had moved. He didn't hesitate. He didn't explain. He walked toward them with purpose, every step shedding the ceremonial act and reclaiming his role as a father, a protector, a soldier. "Excuse me, sir," he said, his voice sharp as steel. "Let go of the child." The man froze, his grip still tight on the girl's arm. "This is absurd," he said, laughter forced and plastic. "She's my niece, Emily. I said let go," Nathan repeated, stepping between them. The girl looked up at him now, no longer hiding the tremble in her lip. She was breathing fast, still, silent, but her eyes screamed thank you. The man's mask began to crack. His smile wavered, his gaze darted to the nearest gate, measuring escape routes, calculating odds. "You're making a mistake," he said under his breath. "You don't know who I am." Nathan locked eyes with him. "No," he said flatly, "but I know exactly what you are." The crowd was closing in. A woman whispered, "I don't think that's his niece." Another murmured, "She looks scared to death." Security guards were now alerted and moving fast. Nathan knelt down, lowering himself to the girl's eye level. "Sweetheart," he said gently, "the signal you gave me, that's something we teach kids to use when they can't speak out loud. Was that why you made it?" The girl nodded, a tiny, trembling nod. Nathan looked up just in time to see the man long. And what happened next? It wasn't ceremony, it wasn't protocol, it was instinct, it was training. And above all, it was the unshakable will to protect a child in danger, even if it meant breaking every rule he'd sworn to uphold. The man moved like a predator, fast, calculated. He didn't care about the guards, the tourists, or the dozens of cameras now trained on him. He saw only one thing, the little girl slipping through his control. As the stranger lunged, his arm swept forward, aiming not at Nathan, but at the girl. He had a blade, not big, not flashy, but sharp and fast. the kind designed to cut, not threaten. Nathan's instincts kicked in, time slowed. He saw the man's angle of attack, the position of the girl, the glint of steel catching the sunlight. In one motion, he dropped his ceremonial rifle, stepped in, and intercepted the strike. His left forearm taking the hit. The blade tore through the crimson wool of his uniform and into his flesh. Blood bloomed instantly, soaking through the fabric. But Nathan didn't flinch. He couldn't afford to. His right fist drove forward with precise, brutal power, striking the man square in the chest, knocking the wind from his lungs and forcing him backward. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Children screamed. Phones clattered to the pavement. The palace courtyard was no longer a tourist attraction. It had become a war zone. The man recovered fast. Too fast. This wasn't his first fight. He pivoted hard on his back foot and lashed out wildly, the blade arcing toward Nathan's side. Nathan deflected it with his bleeding arm, gritting his teeth. He felt the pain but ignored it. Pain could wait. He countered hard with a crushing elbow to the man's jaw. A crack echoed. The man staggered but stayed upright, swiping the blade again with desperation and fury. "You're dead," the man hissed, blood in his mouth. "You have no idea who I work for. They'll find you, your daughters." That was the last straw. Nathan's world narrowed. Everything else, tourists, ceremony, pain, consequence, disappeared. All that remained was the girl, and the man trying to hurt her. He attacked. A flurry of precise, devastating strikes. He knocked the blade free and followed with a throat shot that sent the man gasping. Then a blow to the temple. The predator collapsed. Nathan pinned him down, fist pounding like hammers. Each strike fueled not by rage but by protection. Each punch was for the bruises he'd seen. Each one for the terror in the girl's eyes. Each one for every child who'd never been seen in time. "Enough!" a voice shouted. "Sergeant Bellamy, stand down!" It was Corporal Hans, another guard, pulling Nathan back. Blood soaked Nathan's gloves. His chest heaved. The man lay broken, alive, but barely conscious. "Get a medic," Nathan said hoarsely. "Make sure he lives, so he can rot behind bars." Security swarmed the scene. Tourists had backed far away, some filming, others crying. The girl, Lila, stood trembling behind a female officer, clinging to her pink backpack like a lifeline. Nathan, still bleeding, limped over. "Is he gone?" she whispered, barely audible. "He's done," Nathan said softly, kneeling to her eye level despite the pain. "He can't hurt you now." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. Not yet. She was still holding on. He offered a hand. "You're safe now, Lila. I promise." She took it. Minutes later, paramedics wrapped Nathan's arm. As palace officials scrambled to contain the scene, police had already placed the attacker in cuffs, unconscious on a stretcher. A detective approached. "Name's Detective Sharma," she said, scanning the chaos. "That girl, her name's Lila Dawson. She's been missing for 2 weeks, abducted from a school in Missouri. Her face is on every news bulletin back home." Nathan nodded slowly. "She gave the signal." Sharma paused. "You saw it. She made it clear as day. That's why I broke formation." The detective's eyes softened. "You saved her life." Nathan didn't respond. He didn't need praise. He needed to know she was okay. Meanwhile, police began collecting statements. Witnesses described the man's aggression, his lies, and the bruises they'd seen. A mother stepped forward, holding up her phone. "This is her from the Amber Alert. It's her." Another witness, an older gentleman, pointed at the backpack. "That's not the name he gave. It says Leela right there." A female officer confirmed it. "It's her own handwriting. Year 4, Roosevelt Elementary." Sharma turned to Nathan. You'll need to give a full report. You're aware of the implications." He looked down at his torn uniform, soaked in blood. "Yes, ma'am, I broke protocol. And you saved a child," she replied. "There's protocol, and then there's doing the right thing. Unfortunately, in over 360 years, no royal guard had ever stepped out of line during a ceremonial post. But for one child, one silent plea, Staff Sergeant Nathan Bellamy made history, not for honor, not for medals, but because in that moment he remembered something every father knows deep down: some rules are worth breaking when a child's life is on the line. Underscore. As the police secured the courtyard and medics tended to the wounded, a rare stillness settled over Buckingham Palace. But it wasn't the kind of silence reserved for ceremony. It was the breathless quiet that follows after something truly sacred has happened. Underscore. Staff Sergeant Nathan Bellamy sat on the edge of a stone bench, his left arm wrapped in gauze, his uniform torn and blood-stained, his boots scuffed and splattered. But it wasn't the pain that filled his mind. It was her, Lila. She sat a few feet away, wrapped in a gray police blanket that dwarfed her small frame. A female officer held her gently, whispering soft reassurances as a paramedic examined her wrist. Lila didn't speak much, not yet, but her eyes never strayed far from Nathan. Detective Sharma approached him with a somber look. "Sir, we've confirmed her identity. Lila Dawson, age 9, reported missing from Springfield, Missouri. Her parents, they've never stopped searching. We just spoke to them. They're flying here now." Nathan exhaled. His chest finally loosened, but only a little. "They're alive," he murmured. Sharma nodded. "Very much. And they want to meet you." Nathan glanced toward Leela again. "I'll stay, as long as she needs me to." The detective smiled slightly. "She already knows that." Hours passed. The palace gates remained closed to the public as officials coordinated with British and American authorities. And then the moment arrived. An emergency police escort pulled up just outside the courtyard. A man and woman stepped out, both trembling, both clinging to hope like it was the only thing keeping them standing. The woman's eyes scanned the crowd, wild and tearful. Then she saw her. "Lila!" The little girl looked up. Her eyes widened. She stood slowly, the blanket slipping from her shoulders. "Mommy?" The word cracked through the courtyard like thunder. She ran. Fast as her legs could carry her, the woman fell to her knees as Lila threw herself into her arms. The man collapsed beside them, arms wrapping around both. "We never stopped," the mother sobbed. "Not 1 minute, not 1 second." Lila cried too now. Real tears, not the kind she'd held back for weeks. These were the tears of a child finally safe, finally home. Nathan turned away for a moment, swallowing hard. He'd seen a lot in his life. Wars, loss, suffering. But this was what he fought for. After several minutes, Detective Sharma gently interrupted. "Mr. and Mrs. Dawson, there's someone you need to meet." Nathan stood tall despite the pain in his arm. His uniform still bore the marks of the battle, but his posture was proud. Mr. Dawson approached first. His voice broke before he even reached Nathan. "They told us what you did, that you stepped out of line, that you saved our little girl." Nathan extended a hand, but the man pulled him into a tight embrace instead. "You didn't know her. You didn't owe her anything. But you saw her, and you saved her." Mrs. Dawson joined them, hugging him as well. Her voice shook as she spoke. "You broke the rules to do what was right. I don't know how to thank you." Nathan replied simply, "You don't have to. I'm a father." I just did what I hoped someone else would do for my girls." Lila peeked out from behind her mother and ran to him. This time, she wrapped her arms around his waist, holding on like he was a lifeline. "Thank you for seeing me," she whispered. "When I felt invisible." Underscore. It wasn't medals or military honors that mattered to Nathan Bellamy that day. It was this. A little girl with a paper-thin voice and a heart full of fear, finally getting to be a child again. Underscore days later, Nathan stood in his commanding officer's office. Major Harlan Lawrence, a tall man with silver hair and a deep voice, reviewed a report in silence before speaking. "Sergeant Bellamy, you broke formation. Something no Royal Guard has done in over 360 years. Nathan stood at attention, unflinching. "Yes, sir." Lawrence paused, then continued. "You also stopped a child trafficker, rescued a missing girl, and inspired millions. The palace has received over 20,000 letters since the incident. And this morning, the king himself called." Nathan blinked. "Sir, no disciplinary action will be taken. In fact," he opened a velvet box, revealing a medal. "This is a commendation for extraordinary judgment in an unprecedented situation. You're being recognized not for breaking protocol, but for reminding us why the uniform matters in the first place." Nathan took the medal, hand steady, heart full. Underscored weeks later in a quiet garden in Springfield, Missouri, 3 children laughed as they played under a sycamore tree. Hannah, Grace, and Leela, wearing matching daisy chains, their laughter rising into the warm afternoon air. Underscore Nathan sat beside the Dawsons, sipping sweet tea, watching the girls as if time itself had slowed. "She's sleeping through the night again," Mrs. Dawson said softly. "The nightmares are fading." "She still talks about you," Mr. Dawson added. "Says you were the first person who saw her. Not the bruises, not the silence, but her." Nathan smiled, eyes misty. "She saved herself. I just paid attention." Lila ran over, something crumpled in her hand. "I made this for you." It was a handmade card. Inside, a stick figure drawing of a royal guard holding hands with a little girl. Beneath it, written in shaky crayon, "Thank you for not looking away. Life lessons speak to the heart." An underscore, one child, one silent signal, one man who didn't look away. That's all it took to stop a tragedy and to remind the world that seeing someone can save them. Underscore, the ceremony resumed days later. The tourists returned. The cameras clicked. The flags flew high. To the casual eye, nothing had changed. But for those who had been there that day, for those who witnessed it firsthand, something had changed forever. Because that courtyard was no longer just a historic site. It had become a sacred place. A place where a little girl found the courage to ask for help, and where a soldier found the strength to break tradition in order to honor something greater. Let's take a moment and reflect on that. What does it really mean to see someone? Not just glance past them, not just walk by, but to stop, to notice, to feel something in your gut that says this isn't right. I need to do something. For many of us, especially those of us in our senior years, we've lived long enough to know that instinct is rarely wrong. There's a wisdom that comes with time, a deep awareness that builds after decades of watching people, raising families, seeing joy, seeing pain. That's why this story matters so deeply. Because Nathan Bellamy didn't act out of training alone. He acted because he had lived, because he had loved, because he understood that duty doesn't always come from a manual. It comes from the heart. Let me ask you this. How many times have you passed someone in the grocery store, at church, on your street? Someone who looked fine on the outside, but something about them felt off. A child too quiet. a neighbor who suddenly stopped coming to Sunday service, a grandchild who doesn't smile like they used to. We don't always know what's going on. And the truth is, most people won't tell us, but sometimes, if we're really paying attention, we don't need words. We just need to see. And that's what this story reminds us, that the smallest actions, a look, a pause, a question, can make all the difference. Nathan didn't save that little girl because he charged in with a badge and a spotlight. He saved her because he noticed the one thing no one else did: her silence, her hesitation, her signal. And in that moment, he made a choice. He chose compassion over convention, duty to humanity over duty to tradition, and the safety of a stranger over the comfort of following orders. Let's be honest, that kind of bravery isn't easy. Most people would have looked the other way. Most people would have said, "It's not my business." But if you ask me, and I think many of you watching today would agree, there comes a time in every person's life when the right thing and the easy thing are not the same. And that's when character steps in. Hey, so here's today's life lesson. You don't need to wear a uniform to make a difference. You just need to care enough to look closer. In your everyday life, you might not find yourself in front of a palace, but you might find yourself sitting beside a stranger who looks nervous, noticing a caregiver struggling at the pharmacy, watching your grandchild act out for reasons they can't explain. In those moments, don't ignore the feeling, because when we pay attention, we open the door to compassion. And compassion, that's what builds strong communities, strong families, strong futures. This story also reminds us of something deeply American, something timeless, that we're still a nation built on ordinary people doing extraordinary things, not for fame, not for applause, but because it's right. That's the kind of story our country has always needed, and frankly, one we need now more than ever. So here's what I'd love for you to do right now. Hit the like button if this story touched your heart. Leave us a comment down below. Tell us, what did this story remind you of? Have you ever stepped in for someone in need? What would you have done in Nathan's shoes? And just for fun, on a scale from 1 to 10, how powerful was this story for you? We read every single comment, especially from our senior viewers, whose wisdom we cherish. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories that uplift, inspire, and remind us that good still exists in this world. Coming tomorrow, we'll bring you the story of a Vietnam veteran who intervened in a royal ceremony in a way that left British security stunned and changed how the public sees foreign soldiers on royal soil. You won't want to miss it. Hit the notification bell so you're the first to watch when it drops. Final reflection. Sometimes the greatest victories aren't won with weapons or medals. They're won with attention, with heart, and with the courage to break the silence when it matters most. From our family to yours, thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in stories that still have meaning. And thank you for remembering that sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is notice someone nobody else sees. We'll see you tomorrow. Stay kind, stay brave, and most of all, stay human.